you don't always find it right away. And not to despair.
Sure.
There's so many different avenues that you can have in terms of exploring a name, so
Yeah.
many things to draw upon. Just make a list, and as you're writing the book, and as you're reading through the book, you'll be able to really focus on what is the best name, and that'll become more evident.
Hello, this is Louise Dean, founder of the Novelry, the world's best-loved school for writers, with more 5-star reviews than any other and a whole bunch of published success stories. As an award-winning Booker-listed author, I founded the Novelry to help writers avoid the frustrations of writing solo for years by getting wise eyes on the most important element of writing right from the get-go. Story, story, story. And this is our podcast to give you everything you need for happy writing. This is the Novelry on Writing.
Hi, I'm Tara Conklin. I'm the New York Times bestselling novelist of 3 books, and I am a coach in the literary fiction and historical fiction groups at the Novelry. And I'm here with Gina to talk about 5 tips for naming your novel.
Hi, I'm Gina Sorell, and I'm an author and a writing coach here at the Novelry. I love naming novels.
I do too. It's so much fun.
It's honestly one of my most favorite things is to create not only just the name of the book, but then to also name all the different things in the book. But that title is so important.
It really is.
Right. And I find that the thing that helps me is if I focus on kind of an outline or a strategy, what I like to call the 5 A's, things to answer about the novel and also the audience that I want the novel to reach. And so let's talk about that first one, the audience. That's number 1.
I think that's really important when you're kind of envisioning, what the title will be, because obviously you want people to buy your book.
Yeah.
And the title is basically your advertisement. It's like your first run advertisement for the book. So when thinking about audience, it's primarily what genre are you writing in?
Yeah.
Right? So are you writing a romance? Are you writing a thriller? And how do you use your title to target the people who are going to buy that kind of book?
Yeah, absolutely. And as somebody who writes women's fiction and contemporary fiction, I want to make sure that I can cast the net really wide, right? Because especially in contemporary fiction, I want to make sure that I have young readers and older readers and pretty much everybody who is the audience, I'm hoping, of my book. So I want it to be something that's accessible and catches their interest, makes them stop and stare and see that book and be like, oh, I want to pick that up and read the back of it and then open it up and read inside of it and buy it.
Exactly.
That's always the hope. And really just enjoy the book as well, right?
Yeah.
To engage their interest.
Yeah. What's your tip number 2, Gina?
Well, I think the thing I like to think about after my audience is really what I want that name to achieve.
Yeah.
Do I want it to communicate the fact that it's a mystery book, for example? If I was writing mysteries, do I want to have a sense of danger or intrigue in that? Or, do I want it to communicate that the book is humorous?
Yeah.
It's got a great sense of humor about it. Or maybe I want to, allude to the fact that it's something complicated that the characters are going through.
Yeah. And I think it is important to remember that the title is trying to communicate something.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that my second novel was very hard to name. And for the longest time, I was calling it this very generic name of sea, I can't even remember it now, sea, sun, sky, or sea, ocean, rivers, or something like that. And I kept referring to it by those 3 words to my editor, and she kept shaking her head and being like, no, Tara, it's too generic. It's too broad.
Right.
You need to be saying something about the book. We need to be achieving something, communicating something about the novel.
I'm curious, was there a reason why you were thinking so much about bodies of water? Is that something that featured a lot in the book?
There was one particular scene that was I considered kind of the heart of the novel.
Right.
And it was where one of my protagonists was gazing out at the ocean and kind of having this existential, dilemma moment. And for me, that was really Like he lived in South Beach, Miami,
Okay.
and it was just this pivotal moment in the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
but it wasn't. But for me, having that be the pivotal moment of the book was not enough to sort of, merit it being the focus of the title, which really needed to get across something else to the reader about the
Right.
book as a whole.
Right.
So what is?
Well, I was going to ask you one more
Oh
thing
yeah,
about that. So
yeah,
that's really interesting
yeah.
to me because I know the name of that book. And I think what you chose to do is focus on another element that communicated that same kind of feeling that you had, right? Which probably had a really much more tension grabbing achievement at the end of that, right? So
Yeah.
what was the name of that you finally did? Name
The
that book?
title is The Last Romantics.
Right. Which is very romantic, staring out over the water, thinking
Yeah.
about the people in your life who you love and
Yeah.
maybe what's gone wrong. I like that title a lot.
Thanks, I do too.
I
And
think
we'll
your
talk.
editor may have been right.
I think she was. And we'll talk later about where I actually got that title.
Oh yeah,
When
exactly.
when we get to maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, no, but I think you're
tip.
leading nicely into the next point, which I think it's about the attitude of the book, right?
Yeah,
So really
yeah.
that speaks to the tone and the personality of the
Yeah.
book. And you had a very like romantic book and it's really heartfelt and it speaks about that as well, or elements of it were,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And also sometimes there's different naming styles. Like some names are declarative. They feel like mission statements. Some feel like calls to action, right? And then some names are what I like to call funny or punny. There's a play on words there,
Yeah.
or it's a special twist on a phrase or
Yeah.
an idiom that we know.
My third novel is exactly that.
Oh,
and
okay.
the title is Community Board,
Yep.
BOARD. And I specifically chose it because of the play on word with board, because
Smart.
it's kind of based in a small town where
Yes.
people are very involved in their local neighborhood message board, dealing with the very minutia of community life, but because they kind of don't have anything else going on.
Right.
That's like the drama in their life,
Right.
which it is for many of us. The
Right.
dramas that erupt on a neighborhood board can be, even though they're tiny,
Right.
they can
Yeah,
be the stuff of
That's a great
of
play on words.
great tragedy. So wait, we're on number 3.
Yeah. So
Attitude?
Yeah, attitude. And
Attitude,
so my
yeah.
second book is The Wise Women, and it's
Yeah.
the same thing. It's a play on words, right? Because you think of like wisdom, wise women, and the character's last name is actually Wise.
Oh.
And the mother, Wendy Wise, is a matriarch,
Uh-huh.
and she was an advice columnist.
Oh,
Right, so she's giving out
that's
wise words. There's the
wonderful.
wisdom, but it's a play on that, And
Yeah.
I think that's fun. It just makes people smile when they look at it and gets
Yeah.
their attention. It's something which is another way to name. And
Yeah.
I also really love names that have lots of layered meaning in them. And you can
Exactly.
get
Yes,
something
I
on
was
that
just
first
gonna-
level when
yeah.
you see it, and then you can get something if you go a little bit deeper and a
Yeah.
little bit deeper.
And I love that, when you pick it up, it will maybe grab you for one reason, the title.
Right.
But then when you read the book itself, the title will sort of unveil itself to
Yes,
you
I love
as
that.
having all of these other meanings.
love
I'm thinking of
that.
like All the Light You Cannot See. I mean,
Right.
which is such a beautiful title.
it's beautiful.
And then as you're reading the book, it's a blind protagonist,
Yeah.
and there's just so much in that title that is uncovered as
Dealing
you
with
read through
themes
the
that are
novel.
light and dark,
Yeah.
and playing with all of
Yeah.
that. No, absolutely.
With courses, coaching, and community, the Novelry is the world's top-rated writing course. You'll come up with the idea for a novel you can't wait to write, then you'll write a finished draft, and you'll edit your novel into a book that readers will love. A Big 5 publishing editor will review your novel. So, if you've got a book in you and you've never found the right time to write it, now there's a good place. Come on over to the Novelry. Beginners welcome. We'll show you how to start, coach your story into shape, and cheer you on to type the end.
And that actually brings us to our next point, which is
Okay.
attributes, which is about the
Number
theme,
4
right?
for those taking notes
Number
at home.
4, yeah. Because the theme can really, the theme can be something that you draw upon as well when naming the novel,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
choosing your title. You want to talk a little bit about that you've done for yourself?
I mean, just going back to The Last Romantics, I mean, one of the sort of heart of this novel was the relationship between 4 siblings.
Yeah.
And the idea that sort of the love of your life was not necessarily like a romantic partner, but could be someone, you know, in your own family, and can and for these siblings, they were all sort of the loves of each other's lives. And that was kind of the theme that of the novel that I wanted to convey in the title.
Oh, I love that. For my first book, my debut, Mothers and Other Strangers, the theme was estrangement, right? Like a mother who's estranged from her daughter, and all these secrets and lies and trying to uncover the truth. And I thought that was something which was, you don't think of your mother as being someone who's a stranger.
No.
So to say, you know, mothers and other strangers,
Yeah.
right away it's saying, ooh, there were problems in this relationship,
Yeah.
right? And I love the idea of using that theme to really shed light onto what that title could be. I also have a story about what that original title was, like yourself. It was called Homecoming.
Oh.
Because I was like trying to figure out home and where you belong, and a sense of home and where the mother's from. And my editor also was like, no, too vague.
Too generic.
No, too generic.
Yeah.
You know? And so sometimes I think that's important for people to know, is that you don't always find it right away, and not to despair.
Sure.
There's so many different avenues that you can have in terms of exploring a name, so many things to draw upon.
Yes.
That just make a list. Just make a list, and as you're writing the book, you know, and as you're reading through the book, you know, you'll be able to really focus on what is the best name, and that'll become more evident. But I think sometimes people get too attached to their first choice.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to really move past that. And
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that it's all movable.
Yeah, it is all movable. And even if you don't have a title when you start writing, and you keep changing titles, or your editor tells you to change titles, you for example,
Yes.
You know, you'll find it, and there are many different places to look. And so is this bringing us to number 5?
Brings us to number 5.
All right.
Which is Ancestry, right?
Okay.
The sort of where that name comes from, or maybe sometimes even the etymology of the name.
Yeah.
You know, or what the inspiration can be that you can draw upon from other sources for the name.
Yeah.
And you've got some great thoughts on that you want to share.
Yeah. One, a good writer friend of mine gave me this tip a couple years ago that I think is brilliant, is that the title of your book is very often in the draft itself, in the words that you've written. And just to try reading your book with an eye for like a subtle turn of phrase, or a line of dialogue, or something that maybe as you were writing it, you didn't think, oh, this is going to be the title, or it didn't stand out to you. Her book, she was having the hardest time naming it, and her editor actually said, well, you have this really wonderful line, women are the fiercest creatures.
Yes.
And that ended up being the title. And Andrea Dunlop, who's the writer, she like had not really considered that as the title. They had been through a lot of different titles at that point. And that ended up being the title of the book. And it is. And it has everything that you want. It has these layered meanings. It kind of is telling you, it's communicating something
very much
about the book. It was great. And also a couple other places that I like to go to if I'm really kind of up against it. I look at sort of classical poetry and Shakespeare. You never know what you're going to find. And The Last Romantics actually came from a Yeats poem.
Wow.
And as soon as I read that, because I was, as I said, my editor and I were having this big debate about what should be the title. And so I went to some poetry books that I had, left over from college. And I read this poem, Coolhurst and Ballaleigh, 1931. And it had the phrase, The Last Romantics in it. And the whole tenor of the poem was sort of about nostalgia and about lost love and looking backwards, which was precisely the kind of tenor of the novel. So it worked great.
That's fantastic. I like song titles.
Yes.
Yeah, I like song titles. I love listening to music when I write, and I'll often draw a playlist, I'll put something together. and sort of create a playlist for myself. And usually there are, just like themes that either overlap in terms of the music I'm listening to or the tone of the music that I'm listening to, and or the type of artist. And I just love that song titles can be so evocative and they're so original. And sometimes they're a really great jumping off point, really inspiring to think about, because it is like poetry to music. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's just another way to think of the work. And sometimes something emerges that you weren't expecting if you let yourself look a little bit outside of the box.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that naming a book is really fun. Like
it's so fun. It's so fun.
And I admit that I have probably more titles than I have books in me. Like, I mean, because and sometimes it can start with the title. Like, my first novel, I had the title almost before I had the full story, and it really kind of helped shape the way I wrote the book.
Yeah, I think so too. I also sometimes I'd like to have my characters write their own books or be writing articles, and I have sort of, I'll sort of play around with, what could this title be? What could I put with that in there as well? But I think sometimes it actually can help to think of the title first if you want to, as a way to almost like a log line, what you want to communicate about the book. See if you can make it really succinct that way. But I am also really well aware, having done it, that it can be the very last thing that you write for your book. And really the most important part is the story. Because the story is going to inform what that title is. Right?
Definitely. As we teach at the Novelry.
Yes,
story
absolutely.
First. Gina, it's been so fun talking to you about this today.
Oh, thank you. It's been so fun chatting with you. I could talk about this all day.
Me too.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. We're so pleased to have you along for the writing journey, and we hope to see you on another episode of The Novelry on Writing. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at thenovelry.com. From first draft to finished manuscript, at The Novelry you'll enjoy one-to-one coaching from best-selling authors, live writing classes with award-winning authors and literary agents, and you'll work with a publishing editor all the way for submission to literary agents toward a publishing deal. All writers learn from other writers, even the greats. Write your novel in good company. Join us at The Novelry. We'll show you how to start, coax your story into shape, cheer you on to type the end.